Hello, welcome to Newscentre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The Supreme Court has upheld the Centre's August 2019 decision to abrogate Article 370, which stripped Jammu and Kashmir of its special status. In a landmark judgment, a Chief Justice-led bench ruled that Article 370 was an interim arrangement in view of the special circumstances because of the war conditions in the state. Ashmit Kumar joins us now. Ashmit, a landmark judgment by the court. Take us through the key contours.
Well, a landmark judgment indeed from the Supreme Court that has upheld the status of the 2019 actions that removed the special status of J&K. Now, the judgment came from a bench of 5 judges headed by the Chief Justice of India. Here are 5 key takeaways. Number 1, Supreme Court has upheld that abrogation of Article 370 as constitutionally valid. The 2019 exercise has been given a thumbs up. The Supreme Court held that President has the authority to act unilaterally to repeal Article 370. The Supreme Court also rejected the contention of the petitioners that President was bound to seek the concurrence of the J&K Assembly. Number 2, the Supreme Court has held unequivocally that after signing of the instrument of accession, J&K does not retain any element of sovereignty. The Supreme Court held that Article 370 was a feature of asymmetric federalism and that it should not be confused with sovereignty. Number 3, the Supreme Court also upheld the Centre's stance that Article 370 was a temporary provision. The petitioners had argued that after the Constituent Assembly of J&K ceased to exist, Article 370 had become permanent. However, the Supreme Court has held that Article 370 was transitory in nature, only to allow the Constituent Assembly to ratify the state constitution. Number 4, the Supreme Court has held that Constitution of India is applicable to the whole of J&K. With this declaration, the Supreme Court has also held that Constitution of the J&K is now inoperative and redundant. And finally, number 5, on the question of breaking up of the state into union territories of J&K and Ladakh, the Supreme Court has said that it will not enter that debate. The Supreme Court instead has chosen to hold the centre to its assurance that statehood shall be restored. The Supreme Court has, however, upheld the decision of carving out Ladakh from J&K and finally directed for the elections to be held to the J&K Assembly by no later than September 30th, 2024. Now, the Prime Minister tweeted to welcome the Supreme Court verdict. The Prime Minister called the judgment a beacon of hope and a promise of a brighter future. Meanwhile, even before the judgment was pronounced, Kapil Sibal had tweeted that some battles are fought to be lost. With this, the Supreme Court has drawn curtains on a highly volatile issue consigning Article 370 to the history books.
We have held that the power of the President of India under Article 370, Clause 3, to issue a notification declaring that Article 370 ceases to exist, subsists even after the dissolution of the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir. We have held that the state of Jammu and Kashmir did not retain an element of sovereignty when it joined the Union of India. Paragraph 8 of the instrument of accession executed by Maharaja Hari Singh provided that nothing in the instrument would affect the continuance of the sovereignty of the Maharaja in and over the state. On 25 November 1949, a proclamation was issued for the state of Jammu and Kashmir by Yuvraj Karan Singh. The declaration in this proclamation that the Constitution of India would not only supersede all other constitutional provisions in the state, which were inconsistent with it, but also abrogate them. The state of Jammu and Kashmir does not have internal sovereignty which is distinguishable from the powers and privileges enjoyed by other states in the country.
To take this discussion forward, we're now joined by Tuhin Sinha, BJP spokesperson, and Mahima Singh, Congress spokesperson. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Tuhin Sinha, how do you see this as a judgment that will affect the politics of Jammu and Kashmir, the development of Jammu and Kashmir, putting the debate over Article 370 to rest in a sense? Tuhin Sinha.
Well, good evening, Parikshit. Good evening, everybody. I think on 5th August 2019, the historic decision to abrogate Article 370 and remove 35A has already changed the politics of the state, and today's decision by Honorable Supreme Court cements that decision. So essentially, there is no going back from here. I think Kashmir awaits a better future. And I think, the falsehood of both of the local parties, National Conference and PDP, and, the support that falsehood got from Congress stands exposed today, because the Honorable Supreme Court has reiterated that Article 370 was only a temporary provision under special circumstances. It became permanent by a mischievous interpretation because the Constituent Assembly of Kashmir was supposed to take a decision, but then one fine day it abruptly dissolved itself in 1957, and henceforth, for political interest, both the local parties as well as the Congress tried to believe that Article 370 was a permanent provision. Now, the harm that Article 370 had done to Kashmir is something for you to see. It had reduced Kashmir to a radicalized hub, whereas, Kashmir had always been the land of free trade in the 13th and 14th century. So I think, post the abrogation of Article 370, we have restored Kashmir to its original status, the way it used to be a couple of centuries ago, and also provided a whole lot of opportunities to people who were unfairly denied these opportunities because of 35A.
Right. Let me get in Mahima Singh of the Congress Party. Mahima Singh, the Congress was opposed to the manner in which the special status for Jammu and Kashmir was abrogated. They had supported the petitions challenging the abrogation of Article 370 in the Supreme Court. Now that Supreme Court has not agreed with that stand, it has decided not to interfere with the centre's decision, with the president's decision. How will this change Congress's approach to Jammu and Kashmir, the politics? Will the party have to go back to the drawing book?
Jai Hind, I think at the very outset, let me just say that one verdict has been delivered today, and one is yet to be delivered by the people of Jammu and Kashmir like it should be in a democracy, and that would only happen when an election is actually conducted in the state. I was just listening to the BJP spokesperson and, all the huge talks that the BJP always does. We want to ask, have the jobs gone up in Jammu and Kashmir? Has the per capita income gone up in Jammu and Kashmir? And I think while holding a press conference very recently, my leaders, Mr. Chidambaram and Mr. Singh, we have made it very clear that the CWC resolution on Kashmir, wherein we have said that Article 370 must be honored until it is repealed or amended in accordance with the Constitution of India, it has to be as it is. And I think while the Supreme Court gave out the exhaustive judgment today that it is I think more than 400 pages of judgment. It's just been uploaded an hour ago. We've not had a chance to go through it in detail. But I think the stance that the Congress always had is very clear. We are bound by the judgment, whatever the Supreme Court says, yet we would say that it is disappointing that the Supreme Court has held it valid. You see, while the Supreme Court has also had, now there are contradictions, as Mr. Chidambaram pointed out. He said that 367 has been interpreted to amend 370, has been held by the Supreme Court to be ultra vires. Now, you see, when you peruse the judgment in detail, in depth, I'm sure a lot of contentions will come forward, and then we can debate the whole agenda with a lot of with much more poise. But I think the Congress's stance remains intact. Parikshit, I think it remains very intact that the people of Jammu and Kashmir and their security and their rights are utmost, and I think they must be safeguarded at all costs. Any amendment to 370 should have been done, and that's what we maintain in accordance to the Constitution, which it is not.
Right. Let me go back to Tuhin Sinha. Tuhin Sinha, strong words there from the Congress's spokesperson that this does not change the politics for the Congress. They always believe that the people and the state assembly should have been consulted before a decision of this magnitude, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir would show the real verdict. But at the same time, I'd like to ask you about two issues. One, the Supreme Court seeking the expediting of the statehood for the state of Jammu and Kashmir and elections to be held by 30th of September next year. Will the BJP deliver on both these timelines? What about statehood?
Well, there is no reason to not, conduct elections. There was a process to be followed. Delimitation was at the core of it. Now that the delimitation of seats is on the verge of getting completed, and we will go ahead with the elections as indicated by the Honorable Supreme Court. But I think the Congress spokesperson was indirectly casting aspersions on the sagacity of the Supreme Court. because, by repeatedly mentioning that it should have been abrogated in a constitutional manner, she was suggesting that the Supreme Court has supported something unconstitutional, which is why the Congress is redundant today. You need to understand when Article 370 in the first place was a temporary provision. Ideally, it should have been abrogated many decades ago, and the Congress got multiple chances. Even during the 60s, many members of Parliament, including Lohia, had called for the abrogation of Article 370. After the 1971 war, I think India was in a vantage position. It could have, tried to abrogate Article 370. The very fact that so many people, I'll give you a simple example. Dr. Manmohan Singh's family had migrated from West Punjab into India. Had they not migrated into East Punjab but to Kashmir, he would have not even got a government job. So the injustice that large sections of the population of Kashmir was facing due to these articles had to be addressed. And I think, it should have been welcomed rather than Congress casting aspersions. And one more thing. Digvijay Singh, a senior leader of the Congress party, a few months after the abrogation of Article 370, on a clubhouse chat with Pakistani journalists, he was promising them that once the Congress government comes to power, they will reinstall Article 370. So I think, after today's judgment, the scope for that does not exist. And I think Congress is really upset.
Allow me to respond here, Mr.
All right,
Luthra.
Mahima Singh, let me get you in. Yes, please respond. But I would also like to ask you, when it comes to the India alliance, how will you take this judgment to the India alliance for the next set of campaign, next set of politics for Jammu and Kashmir?
Before I respond to your question and before I comment upon the BJP spokesperson's audacious contentions here, let me just remind that before the Congress came to power in 2004, the number of Kashmiri Pandits in the Valley of Kashmir was only 2,000. It was Dr. Manmohan Singh's vision that 12,000 jobs were created in the Valley and reserved for Kashmiri Pandits. And today, the number of Kashmiri Pandits in the Valley, till in 2019, before this decision was brazenly taken, it was 9,000. And even now, they were kept in camps. Then this was slowly amalgamated with the society. That was the vision of Dr. Manmohan Singh. The BJP cannot really tell what they have substantially done for the people of Kashmir. While they keep shouting 370, I think all the constitutional experts, all the sociologists already know that 370 was not abrogated in the shape it was actually implemented initially. A lot of amendments have been made to it. A lot of substance was actually changed to make it really one, with India, while Kashmir and Kashmiri people have always been, are and always will be integral to India, are one with India. I think Congress has done the most number of legislations, the most number of, governmental shifts in order to enable that oneness, that unity between Kashmir and India. Now, when this BJP spokesperson was speaking, number one, he did not answer my question about jobs and per capita income, about the state of economy in Jammu and Kashmir, which the data, if you peruse, it will speak louder in itself. And number two is that, he said that the Supreme Court has indicated that the elections must be. I must say the Supreme Court has directed categorically so that restore the state to its statehood and conduct elections by September 30. And while we say that, please remember the Prime Minister himself said on June 2021 that we are about to restore the state to its statehood.
Right.
We must not forget how cunningly, how conspiringly the BJP first actually ended its coalition with the PDP months before it actually was going to abrogate 370 and never let their coalition partners also get a hint of it. So today when we talk of it, we must remember that the BJP's talks of development and restoration of peace and security in the valley are futile and empty. Now you're asking me, Mr. Luthra, how will we take it back to the India Alliance partners? Let me
because
say
the Shiv Sena, for one, is welcoming the decision.
See, one is that we have said we are all bound. As Indian citizens, we are all bound by the Supreme Court's decision. We may be happy, we may be unhappy. We might have more remedies to go to, in legal terms, to really keep up the cause. But at the same time, I must say that the resolution, as I said, that we had made at CWC is very clear that anything done to 370, and tomorrow you'll see 371 also. You see, 371 is also in line. When I was in Nagaland during the elections, we kept asking the BJP what are their intentions for 371 also. They would not name it, they would not talk about it, because the BJP works in a very conspiring manner. So the India alliance partners are very clear that sovereignty of this country is utmost, the security of our people is utmost, and I think we'll have a dialogue on wherever there are any differences. At the core of it, the India
Right.
alliance is, has democratic values at the very core. The only mission that the parties have
Okay.
come together under the banner of India is to keep up the values of democracy that are being increasingly diluted by the BJP currently. And I think that intention must be upheld and will be upheld.
All right. Mahima Singh, we've run out of time completely. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to you and Tuhin Sinha for joining us. This is a story that we'll continue following very closely. Moving on to Madhya Pradesh.